What up? We here talking about NXT from July the 29th, 2025. And we're going to talk about, yes, I saw the Evolve Kids and their take on Hulk Hogan. We'll talk about that near the end because I don't really want to start this video with it, but we'll talk about it later. But we're going to start. Hulk Hogan got a 10-bell salute for NXT. They also showed a vignette. Again, very well done. Okay, so the first match on the show. Jada Parker defeated Jasmine Nix with the Hypnotic. The match was actually okay. A nice soccer kick by Jasmine Nix. Jada Parker was pretty aggressive. Also liked some of her throws. But Jada Parker kind of dog walked her. You know, Jasmine Nix hasn't had a really competitive match yet. Usually she just kind of goes in there and takes a beating and loses. Hilariously, the crowd chanted "Thank you, Jesus" during this match, which I thought was very entertaining. Praise be to God. Absolutely. JC Jane and Fallon Henley berate Jasmine Nix for losing. They were not a fan of her taking the L. They were building throughout the night this issue here between these three, because Fallon Henley had the match next, and it was against the quote-unquote bougie bully, Lash Legend, which was the third match on the show. Lash Legend was very aggressive, while Fallon Henley was quite cocky. Lash Legend kept beating up JC Jane and Jasmine Nix, who kept getting involved. Nia Jax then attacked Lash Legend from behind because Lash Legend at one point called herself the most dominant woman in WWE. And then she got thrown back into the ring after she got attacked from behind by Nia Jax. And Fallon Henley hit a Faymaster, and her Faymaster doesn't look like it hurts. It just kind of looks like a leg drop on the back of the head. Anyway, Fallon Henley won the match, which was great. I'm glad Fallon Henley didn't lose, mainly because I think that Fallon Henley winning keeps her competitive when it's time to blow the Fatal Influence up. You don't want all of a sudden Fallon Henley is competitive with JC Jane. She should be able to win sometimes too. So when this whole thing is over, she has credibility. At the end of the episode, Fallon and Jasmine, they quote unquote shade one another. You know how women talk. Where Fallon Henley said, well, at least I won. Jasmine couldn't carry her own weight. While, Jasmine said she only won because of Nia Jax. At this point, Nia Jax showed up and said that Lash Legend does not measure up to her. And earlier, when she bonsai dropped Lash Legend, she told her to watch her mouth and called her a bitch. So, in setting up a women's contender line, Jada Parker beat Jasmine Nix, so she should be in the mix. While Lash Legend is going to be directed to Nia Jax. And Nia Jax says she's willing to show somebody next week that she's the most dominant woman in NXT. I wonder who that's going to be. We're going to have to find out next week. Nia Jax in NXT, I'll allow it. She wasn't doing anything else. She ain't got much else going on. I know she's still working house shows with Tiffany Stratton, still holding her hand. I'm not understanding why this is still going on, but it is. And I'm glad that she's going to be doing something different finally. Jada Parker, however, she was in the middle of something with Mariah May. Blake Monroe, a.k.a. Mariah May, had an in-ring promo where she made fun of Jordynne Grace for being chubby. She says that Jordynne Grace has no personality, is not championship material, just gym membership material, and that she was more of an extra, while Blake Monroe herself is the centerpiece of the women's division. This brought out Lola Vice, Jada Parker, and Kalani Jordan to confront Blake Monroe. Kalani Jordan ended up challenging Mariah May to a match, and Mariah May threw a headbutt. Worst move in wrestling. I hate headbutts. Why must she do headbutts? Anyway, they're going to have this match next week. The funny moment where Mariah May ends up thrown over the top rope, but she starts clutching onto Jada Parker, and Jada Parker looks down at her and then just shoved her, and she kind of slid across the mat. So I thought that was funny. She needs work on her promos. Kalani Jordan is still a very bad promo, but Mariah May still needs work on the promo. I'm surprised I didn't see a lot of, is this fat shaming stuff when it comes to Jordan Grace. That's a very old picture, too. That picture is like 3 years old. The one of her being extremely chubby. But that's back when I used to call Jordan Grace Miss Piggy, when she looked like Bebop from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I'm glad she changed her body. I don't know what she did to her face. I think that's just, whatever she's taking. That she's on that Overeem diet. The she's on the Overeem Brock Lesnar diet. So, it is what it is. But Blake Monroe, she needs help with her promos. Like, she really does. And she's going to get there eventually. She's got to put in the work. Javon Evans popped up. He was all over the place on this show. Got into it with High Rise and Chase U, and got into the face of Trick Williams for a little bit. And then he had a match with Wes Lee, which was actually a banger. I thought this was pretty damn good. Huge flip over the top rope for Wes Lee. I forget what it's called. Is it a Kohilo? And also Wesley hit him with like a simple rabbit punch, which you don't see a lot of those either. But Javon Evans came back later in the match with a coast-to-coast flip kick. It was very excessive. It looked like a swanton bomb, but it landed with a kick. It's very excessive. And Javon Evans, I'm very, very concerned about this young man. I know he's like 20, 21 or something like that. But somebody needs to grab him by his bicep and say, brother, you don't need to jump as far as you can or as high as you can multiple times per match. Your back is human, okay? You have a human spine, a human back. You don't need to do these things this way. And hopefully Wes Lee was the guy who told him, because Wes Lee had a really bad back too. A huge leap over the top rope for Javon Evans because the boy can jump for show. Wesley hits a cardiac kick, which is his finisher, but Javon Evans' legs get into the ropes, which I thought was pretty great. Javon Evans ends up winning the match with a high double jump cutter. He got a lot of air on that thing. This was a really fun match for high flying. The only problem I had here is it seemed a little excessive, the amount of jumps. I don't see why he couldn't do just like a normal coast-to-coast drop kick without flipping and almost landing on his head. It seemed very excessive. But Javon Evans won the match, which is rare. He doesn't win a lot. And Trick Williams was on commentary cutting him down, of course. And Trick Williams seemingly wants to fight Javon because he's the top guy around here. But Obafemi appears. He's on the balcony. He holds up his belt too. So they're both saying that they're the top guy in the company. They're both the top guy on the show. And Javon Evans should want to fight them for their title. I like this. I like this little competition here about which one of these guys is the top guy. Is Trick Williams, who is a world champion, while the NXT title is not a world title. It's developmental. But, hey, I like the competition there. It's continuing what they started last week with Trick and Oba. So it should be fun. And hopefully, whichever one of these matches we get, which will probably be Javon versus Oba, it needs to be one-on-one. I don't need this match to be a triple threat match. And I like that they're taking Javon Evans seriously. He's a little too happy-go-lucky for me. Like how he's kind of bouncing. He got a little pep in his step as he walks around backstage and gets into people's faces and everything. But I still like him. I think the guy's really good. I think he's got something. Hopefully he stays 100% long enough to make something of himself. And hopefully Triple H puts his I don't see race stuff aside for 1 second to see something in this guy. Charlie Dempsey was defeated by Tavion Heights. So Tavion Heights is now out of the NQCC. Again, no drama. The two just shook hands afterwards. It was a pretty good graps. Nothing special, but nothing bad here. Tavion Heights he's got something. This guy could be special as a solo act if he was taken seriously. He could be immediately a top contender, at least for the North American title. I really like Tavion Heights. Charlie Dempsey's got something too, but personality is lacking a little bit. I need to see a little bit more of a mean streak from him too. I wish he was more like Timothy Thatcher, But I don't know what they're doing with Charlie Dempsey because he's been around for a while, and he does a whole lot of jobs, and his character progression has stalled quite a bit. Tatum Paxley wants to challenge Sol Ruca for the women's North American title, but Izzy Dame didn't think that was a good idea because she didn't beat the champion. But Sean Spears appears and said that he got Tatum Paxley that match with Sol Ruca, and Tatum Paxley was so excited and was hugging everybody around, and Izzy Dame didn't look happy about it. She's you know how women are. She was jealous. She was jealous that Tatum Paxley got rewarded by Sean Spears, and that Sean Spears thanked Paxley for winning the match last week for the culling. They shouldn't break this up so soon. Let this sit for a while. Let this simmer. I think Paxley needs to be doing something, and this is as good as anything for her to do. All right, so Josh Briggs and Stacks were talking about wasted opportunities as Briggs had a shot at the NXT title and lost. Briggs was extremely mad. Inamura stormed in and started pushing and shoving with Briggs. The two of them got pulled apart because Briggs is mad at Inamura for wasting the opportunity, and Inamura is mad at Briggs for being a man with no honor. Stacks says to Inamura that, family doesn't last forever, and he said that honor does not exist in this business. At that point, Inamura smacked him and then said he's going to show him honor next week. I don't really want to watch Inamura wrestle Stacks, but I guess they got to do something with this guy. They took him away from Tony D'Angelo, so they got to do something. Also, Luca Crucifino, he was floating around backstage too, saying family doesn't last forever. So everybody's teasing some things here. This is with the Tatum Paxley, Izzy Dame. So basically, Paxley is accepting that Izzy Dame is her new family, but everybody knows that Izzy Dame is jealous, and so Luca Crucifino's like, family doesn't last forever. And this brings us to the final closing segment of NXT, where Tony D'Angelo was in the restaurant, and we didn't hear like a noise, like a door open or close or anything like that. And he looks over his shoulder and the lights go out. So we don't know if he got smoked or not. It was a very Sopranos ending where we're led to believe that he's dead. I don't know. Or he's been kidnapped. I don't know. But we're going into the next phase of Tony D'Angelo. A lot of people were unhappy with this because throughout the show, they kept showing the face of Joe Hendry. There was flashes of Joe Hendry's face on the screen during matches. They did it 2 or 3 times. The last time they did it, it was during the main event. So people thought Joe Hendry was going to show up at the end, which is what I thought, because I was one of those people who believed that Santino Marella versus Ethan Page wasn't a real main event. It was a red herring. But Shawn Michaels and Triple H actually played it straight, and we really got Ethan Page versus Santino Marella as the main event. Shocking. But that does tell me something I will discuss in a second. But on the subject of Tony D'Angelo, of course, people think that Tony D'Angelo is being called up to the main roster. Some people think the character is being killed off. I like not knowing. I love not knowing. So I'm very interested in where this goes. I don't think they're going to kill the character off because the character's been very successful. Yes, they have removed a lot of the extras from him. They've stripped the character down to the barest of bones. But I don't think they're going to kill the character off. So I'm looking at what the next step is going to be. Hopefully they're going to introduce new family members, or they're going to introduce somebody else to put with Tony D'Angelo, which could be make him a lot more interesting. And it doesn't seem like this whole thing is over, because now we're dealing with the fallout of the family, and everybody's looking for what their next thing is. And Luca Crucifino is kind of floating around trying to figure out what his next thing is going to be, and Stacks too. So I think it's going to be the same thing with Tony D'Angelo, where he's not dead or dying. We're just trying to figure out what his next thing is going to be. Now, in terms of Joe Hendry, they flashed Joe Hendry's face 3 times during matches. I'm thinking Joe Hendry is going to win the NXT North American title, and probably either at Heatwave or at whatever next TNA event it will be. In the main event, Ethan Page just beat Santino Marella with an eye poke and a twisted grin. The match was fine, but they should have gone on first, if we're being honest. And maybe Wes Lee and Javon Evans should have main evented. I don't think Santino's return is worthy of a main event, even of NXT. He should have just went on first. Santino is obviously just a novelty act and not anything meant to be taken seriously, so I'm not surprised he didn't win. I'm surprised he was the main event, though. So, obviously, they're building up Ethan Page to lose the belt. Now, on NXT, on TNA, they did sort of a frontline kind of thing where it was the Hardys, it was Leon Slater, it was Macklin. All these guys are drawing a line in the sand for people who are disrespecting TNA. And it's just like I said, it seems like Steve Macklin might be one of these guys that is involved with this. I thought he might win the North American title, but now I see it's more than likely going to be Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry versus Ethan Page is probably going to make the AEW fans' heads explode because they're both meme wrestlers. But it's humorous. They're both humorous meme wrestlers. I know they've wrestled before, but this time is definitely the time where heads are going to roll around in the dirt. There's been, of course, some complaints. There's not enough TNA guys. It should have been an invasion, which it seems like they're building up to. But it's more or less they're doing an invasion on TNA. And it seems that the TNA talent are going to be defensive more than offensive. Like, they're not going to come to NXT and start trouble. That they're going to sort of repel NXT invaders as they come, kind of thing. That could be interesting depending on how they do it. And I would prefer it if it was going both ways, that there was some kind of invasion of TNA talent into NXT. But I'm not trying to force the issue. I'm just saying, like, this would make for more compelling storytelling. But clearly NXT is doing their own thing, and TNA's thing is the NXT crossover. So it's not the top storyline in both shows. It's really only the top storyline for TNA. NXT is still trying to rehab their men's division, and they're trying to reintegrate Mariah May into their women's division. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff they got going on that don't involve TNA, and they're just going to use their top wrestlers to push the TNA brand. And, well, one of their top wrestlers, I'm not sure JC Jane considered a top wrestler. I love me some JC Jane, but I'm not sure I'm ready to put her on that pedestal quite yet. In any event, it's clear to me that JC won't be champion for much longer, and neither will Trick, and that both of them are going to be passing the torch soon. But all about who's going to take one home for the team for TNA, and Joe Hendry being the one is the right guy because he was the first one to lose. And I think him being the guy who gets the first title from NXT to TNA would rehab his look, his gimmick a little bit, and rehab his reputation in the TNA locker room if he's the first guy to claim an NXT championship. And I think that Ethan Page is a beatable guy. You can easily take that. Hopefully they don't do anything stupid like decide to give him the Heritage Cup, because that would fucking suck. Go ahead and give him the North American title. And maybe Sol Ruka could cough up her belt too. You know, maybe. I don't know. I like Sol Ruka. Maybe we'll have Paxley win it and then she'll lose it to TNA. You know? But I think Sol Ruka could be a fun addition to TNA as well if, you know, they want it. They need a top babyface in TNA because Indy Hartwell fucking sucks ass. But they're going to do what they're going to do. So there's that. All right, the final segment is they did a sit-down interview with Miles Bourne where he talked about his life, and they had some baby pictures and all that sort of stuff. They're still slow dragging this Miles Bourne thing. I'm thinking that they took him out of that group, not knowing what to do with him. Same thing with Tavion Heights. It seems like, yeah, we took him out of the group, but we don't know why. And they'll figure it out eventually. They don't really have much of a choice. Hopefully Tavion Heights ends up near the top of one of these cards. That would be for the best, but there's no guarantee. All right, so NXT was a pretty solid show. I liked it. Clearly they're leaving some cliffhangers for you guys to watch the show next week. The Javon Evans, Trick, and Oba thing, the Mariah May angle with Jordan Grace. There's plenty of stuff there. I don't like that they ended with Ethan Page and Santino, though. I feel like that should have been a red herring. It should have led to something else. But clearly they are leading to something else because they kept showing the Joe Hendry flash. But I really think they should have just done something on this show because I think that main event needed it. I'm not thinking that, Santino should have won. I'm just saying I think that they needed something to boost that main event. Okay, so a wrestler by the name of Troy Yearwood, who wrestles, I think, under the name Jamar Hampton. He made some appearances on Evolve. He posted the comments that Hulk Hogan made way back in the Gap. I'm a racist to a point, fucking niggers, yada, yada, yada. And he says, is this really who we should be celebrating? Do your research. I mean, this is not much research need to be done. What you do, you Googled it. I mean, people need to stop saying you did your research and all you did was Google things. And you don't even have to look that hard to find this. Here's the thing. Jamar Hampton and I think Keanu Carver liked this post. Keanu Carver, of course, has a lot of other issues. I don't want to get on the side of let's start punishing people for speaking their mind. I don't want that. I think that if he feels that way, that's fine. If he doesn't want to celebrate Hulk Hogan, that's fine. But Hulk Hogan is the reason why his job exists. He wants to be in the WWE. This is what you do. For starters, I think a lot of these guys, they want to be woke so badly that they are not really considering that they could hurt their careers. But at the same time, what benefits them the most is the fact that if these things hurt their careers, they could always just say WWE is racist. I spoke out against racism. Jacob Fatu saying the N-word, Hulk Hogan saying the N-word, and they punish me for it. Why would you do that? I'm just doing the right thing. And then all the liberal wrestling fans can run it about and say, yeah, you just were being very annoying in the locker room and very negative, but, for a good reason. And, you deserve better. So if you're WWE, I think sell this stuff. You don't even pay this any attention. You do whatever it is you were going to do with the guy. If you were going to push him, push him. If you weren't going to push him, then it's not really going to hurt him at all. I don't think there should be any backlash whatsoever for him or Keanu Carver. I think that these guys should be forced to either quit if they don't like it or learn to work within the system. One or the other. You're going to work with people. You're going to meet people that you don't always agree with. And people who might not like you and you might not like them. All these conversations what we've been having in recent years has been people trying to force other people to like them, force other people to like what they like. And this is not reality. In reality, you cannot force people to like you. You cannot force people to care about you. For starters, I don't think anybody truly believes Hulk Hogan is a racist. At this point, there's too many virtue signaling points to be gained from this whole thing. And even the people who worked with him, there's people who obviously don't like him for whatever reason. Clearly, the New Day have an issue with him. Clearly, there's other people, Titus O'Neil and Mark Henry, who are kind of ambivalent about it, where they have tried to help Hulk Hogan in some way. And Hogan has the sort of Vince McMahon, never let him see you sweat kind of thing, where you make your apology, you admit that you did something wrong, and then you move on. And I could tell that this was a Vince McMahon setup, because Hogan probably would have done whatever it took to get all the Hulkamaniacs back together. But it seemed like he was told, yeah, you apologized 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times. I know there was at least 2 locker room apologies, and there was an apology in People, and there was an apology on ABC News. There's, a lot of apologies for Hulk Hogan out there. So if you say, do your research, do your research. Research the People magazine that came out in 2015, where he actually apologized and said that he didn't really mean those things. He said, and I quote, 8 years ago, I used offensive language during a conversation. It was unacceptable for me to have used that offensive language. There is no excuse for it, and I apologize for having done it. But the apology means nothing if the people don't accept it. And people do not accept apologies these days. They want to hold these things over your head forever, because saying bad things or doing bad things just become strings to which they could control you. And since Hulk Hogan was not a person that they could control, especially considering he went on to say more offensive things, about body slamming Kamala Harris, voting for Donald Trump, all these sorts of things that these guys obviously don't like. Keanu Carver has a problem with the whole Trump thing. So, again, you tell them there are not going to be any punishments. Don't even force them to take it down. Leave it up. Let everybody know this is where you are. You want a virtue signal? I would say virtue signal. Go for it, because there's going to be fans who are going to see that and say, yeah, you fucking suck and we don't care about you. And if you flop because of that, then so be it. Sometimes it's better to say nothing than to say something negative. And I think that young wrestlers should be allowed to say whatever they want, and they should not be forced to take it down. They should not be forced to delete the tweets or anything like that. Let it hang. Let it be there. Let people know this is how you felt at the time. Just like Hogan, when he made his comments, he could have paid the ransom and nobody ever would have known about the tape, because he was being blackmailed over this tape, by the way. And I've said this in videos, he could have just bought that tape and nobody ever would have seen it, but he didn't. He didn't want to give in to the blackmailer. He said, hey, I'm going to take the L, and that's it. And so the blackmailer put it out. So everybody should be able to stand behind the things that they say. And I hope that both of these guys will grow up, and they'll make mistakes of their own, and they'll ask for forgiveness, and we'll see if they get the forgiveness that they're denying Hulk Hogan. And that's pretty much my response to all of these different responses. There's no place for me to respond to every response for Hulk Hogan. I only have one response. Let it hang. This is how you feel. You hate Hulk Hogan this much? Okay. Leave it out there. You laughing at him being dead. You're laughing because he's a racist, or whatever the case may be. Just leave it there. Leave it on your Twitter account. Leave it on your Instagram. Leave it there. Then, 5, 10, 15 years, when something happens, and now the gun is pointed at you, I want you to remember when you didn't show any grace, when you thought it was funny that somebody passed away, that you thought that somebody was not worth celebrating, not worth forgiving, and I want you to remember that. And then maybe you'll learn that people's lives, 71 years of somebody's life, cannot be summed up in a few seconds. And people need to learn this lesson. And you don't learn that lesson by shouting at people, screaming at them, calling them names, and calling them weak, and all that sort of stuff, which, they might be. But I realize that black wrestlers today are more empowered than ever. They're more entitled than ever, and they have more opinions than ever. So let them have their opinions, but hold them to their opinions. When they make these stupid comments, and they will, he's going to say something or do something. Okay. And when his time comes, hold him to the same standard that he held Hulk Hogan to. Let's see if he can handle the weight. Let's see if he can handle it when they come for him. As the Hulkster used to say, what you gonna do when the cancel culture comes for you? Hopefully it never comes, but it comes for us all eventually. What are you gonna do? All right, NXT, solid C show. Not great, but not terrible. A good way to spend a Tuesday night. Thank you guys for your time. Be blessed. Talk to you guys later.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.